Never really had anyone ask me, what are you? Or like, what's your skin tone? If someone did ask me, I would probably say I'm mixed.
I'm half Pakistani and I'm half African American.
I'm Asian and American.
Filipino American.
Black and white and both.
Half Black and half Japanese.
1000% a person.
Do people ever confuse what your race is?
I get everything but what I am, pretty much.
Every single day. Just because we live in a diverse community does not mean that racism and all that doesn't happen.
A high percentage of interracial couples have no idea what the experience is for this child that they brought into the world.
I would go to the park with Kanani all the time, and the kid's gotten a little something, and the mother said to me, well, Pika, you know, it's because Kanani doesn't speak English. I had no idea that kids were given a lesson about race so young.
I'm really proud of the current and future generation of mixed kids that are being loud and proud.
Our kids have been instruments of healing.
Is there anything you think us non-mixed race people need to know about mixed race people?
It's not being less of one culture. It's having the opportunity to have a deeper connection to more cultures.
If I asked you, what ingredients to mix you up?
Black, Asian, and love. And a llama and a corgi.
What does W stand for? I have a, and I'm curious to know why it's before what we assume is your first name.
So it's W stands for Walter.
Okay.
Which Wikipedia has figured out, which means sometimes I get emails from people saying Walter Kamau Bell, which I'm like, you're not really a fan of mine. But yeah, so it's my dad's first name is Walter. We have different middle names, so I always went by Kamau as a kid. It's a better name than his middle name, which is Alfred. So I been Kamau. Yeah. So I've been Kamau my whole life, most of my life. There's times in high school I moved around a lot. I was like, call me Walter. I won't be here long. But as a kid, I always knew I wanted to be in show business, an actor, and Kamau Bell didn't sound like enough of a name to me for some reason. So as a little kid, I was like, I'll be W Kamau Bell. And it just sounded like, I remember there was a comedian on SNL at the time called A. Whitney Brown. And I was
sure.
I'm W Kamau Bell. And so this is to honor the kid in me who wanted to be in show business.
And that's Scott Fitzgerald. So
but there's a lot of good initial,
I have one more to add to it. R. Adam Shartoff, my name. I have
yes.
I have a first initial. Most people don't know it because I could just go by Adam. I just don't use it typically because then it leads to, except for it's on like legal documents.
Yeah.
And that, however, does not have a name. So it's like from a Jewish thing where they, instead of giving me the name of this dead relative, is they gave me the initial of their name. I don't know why, but except for that it was the early 60s and perhaps my parents were stoned at the time. Giving them the benefit of the doubt, But W, it's nice to meet you from R. And I'm excited. The other thing we have in common, which is more germane to this meeting actually, in this interview, is this, which I have to.
There you go. Oh, look at you.
This is my son, Jacob, Jake he goes by, who is also a mixed race child. So when this came up, first of all, I've been following you forever, and I wanted to, talk. I mean, any opportunity to meet would have been and talk would have been fantastic. But this one in particular just seemed like really exactly right.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm really excited about this getting out to, sometimes you say, who's the audience? Well, whoever wants to see it. But I really know with this one that there are interracial couples who have mixed race kids, interracial couples who are thinking about having mixed race kids themselves. It's just there. And there's not a lot out in the world that talks about this experience in the way that we talk about it in the film.
And yeah, I mean, since you brought it up, I kind of feel like the audience is people that don't have mixed race children. It's like it kind of it sort of unpeels, you know, it just sort of takes some of the mystery out of it. It's really just great. My question to you is, it's sort of the flaw of your documentary, which is called 1000% Me Growing Up Mixed. The flaw is you should have had academics and experts talking, not kids. What's
I know, you're right.
You know,
what do kids
what
know?
were you thinking?
This is my soft reboot of Kids Say the Darndest Things, is what it was.
You know, I was going to bring that up, then I thought,
yeah,
maybe not.
Best to let it go.
You brought it up, so now it's
now it's fair game. Yeah. You know, the thing I was very clear about if I was going to make this was, one, me and my wife with our children have a great time. We also have times that are struggles, but we also have a great time. Our kids are smart, they are funny, they can speak, they can speak to their problems and their issues at their level. And so the last thing I was going to do is make that boring, you know? Like, I didn't make their experience seem didactic or have adults sort of speak to what their experience was, unless, like we did in the film with this mixed race elder Roy, he was going to speak to it in a way that was relevant to them, not talking around them. So for me, it was really the whole doc was built on, we first started with interviews of kids, my 2 kids and a bunch of other little kids, and then built out from there. And so I think by starting that way, it just was always going to be propelled by their sort of like wit and imagination.
Yeah, and possibly even less filtered, right?
Yeah,
less filtered, less something, you know, like if we edit a lot as adults.
Yes,
now more than ever, right? You've had many years of stand-up, so you know better than anybody. And kids sort of, maybe there's already by your oldest daughter, maybe she's already starting that because it's taught so young, you know. But you know, they're going to be the most honest, I think, Well,
we talked about that in putting and sort of figuring out what age group of kids we talk to. And I really felt like that 9, 10, 11 age was actually really the perfect age. Although we do have a young girl there named Sumaya, who's 7, who's incredible. But I felt like that age is the age of like, they're able to articulate, but they haven't, they're able to articulate, but they haven't started to too heavily edit themselves, in the way that by the time you get to high school, you're thinking about your image, you're thinking about what your friends are thinking, you're thinking about
consciousness. Yeah.
And so there's not as much, there's like now my daughter's a year older now, and she's already a lot more self-conscious than she was when she sat down for this film, because now she's in middle school. So, you know, so I think like, it really is a good age to sort of get like sort of the height of the Venn diagram of like, they're still a kid, but they're also starting to have bigger thoughts.
You grew up when you were approximately somewhere in the mix of your daughter's ages. You have 3 daughters. I think they're all in the film.
Yeah, they're the littlest one didn't have much to say because she was 3 at the time. And she's also like the kid who's mostly been raised during the pandemic, so she's feral. So
yeah. Do you recall from back? Were you in Boston, or where were you? Where were you when you were like, you know, preteen?
So when I moved to Boston when I was 4. So I would, from my daughter's age, I was in Boston from that age of like 4 to 11, where my kids are. Yeah.
Was there any? Did you have any back then when you were young at that age? Did you have any awareness of mixed race? Was there that around you? Is it something that you recall or can tap into at all?
I mean, it's funny. Back then, the term that was commonly used was biracial. Was like, there was like, you know, so that was, I didn't really hear the word mixed race until I got to the Bay Area, or mixed. Many people dropped off the word race. So biracial was the term I heard. And so I knew it was a thing. And here's the thing, that I might have known biracial kids without knowing it, because I don't think there was certainly not as much talk about it. There wasn't as much community around being biracial. If you were darker than the paper bag, you were Black. You know what I mean? So there was not the sense of like talking about that identity as separate from Black, because in the history of this country with the 1-drop rule, you were just Black. So I certainly knew that biracial people existed, but they were not a part of my community as I understood it.
Right. I mean, it's funny, there were other names, but even preceding biracial.
Yeah, we can go
right?
through the history of like, I mean, we talk
Which you
about
go into in the film a little bit with that older mixed race gentleman, right? Because he was trying to.
He couldn't remember. Yeah, he couldn't remember Octoroon. He said Roctagon, or which I thought Roctagon. I don't know if that's a real thing, but I like that. But
it should be.
Yeah, but that's what I like. All the way that I do these things is these are conversations that are being filmed. So I really like those moments where it's like it's clear that me and the person are just having a conversation. It's not about me sort of like setting them up or waiting. We're having an active conversation.
Yeah. Well, we're talking with W about 1,000% Me Growing Up Mixed, which is the name of the documentary. It's going to stream on the Discovery Plus platform. I think I can say this May, because I'll post this once it's already streaming.
Sure.
So that way people can come from watch this and then go right into watching the documentary, which I already think is, like I say, for everybody. You obviously don't have to have a mixed race. Although, like, I don't know, if you're in a major city or anywhere within the orbit of a major city, I'm going to even say just anywhere in the United States, there is somebody mixed race in your family, isn't there? I mean,
it's just, it's sort of interesting. It's like, there are mixed race people all over the country. We did an episode of United States of America in Appalachia last year, and there was a lot of mixed race kids in Appalachia now. In Appalachia, it's mostly black and white, because that's the racial makeup predominantly of Appalachia. But there are mixed race people everywhere. It's just the difference is the size and nature of the community is different. Like, so, I've talked to people where they're like I talked to David Siv, who did the film Bad Axe, and he's a mixed race kid who grew up in Bad Axe, Michigan, and it's a small town. And he realized, he's like, watching your film, I realized one of my best friends, who's adopted by white parents and is very light skinned and black and could be mixed but doesn't know because he's adopted. He's like, I realized we never talked about that. We never talked about what his experience was racially, being a person with white parents who might be mixed. And he's like, that's one of my best friends. So I think the issue is that it's not so much that like these people are everywhere. They are everywhere, but their specific identities aren't being addressed in a way that they feel they can open up about often.
Yeah, it's a good point.
It's right? One of the benefits of living in the Bay Area is that we're not shy to talk about anything. So like, and it is, it's one of the capitals of mixed race people in this country.
Yeah, before I moved up to the Hudson Valley, where frankly, there's not a lot of mixed race up here. There just isn't. There's not a lot of people that aren't white, in fact.
Yes.
Although I shouldn't say that, because we do have a few cities up here, but it's a striking change. But back in Fort Greene.
Yes, that's another mixed race capital.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but well, I mean, I just wonder why, and this goes to a larger question maybe that your documentary doesn't even tap into, which is which is why there's such a racism problem in this country, but it's more historically entrenched and just institutionally entrenched. I understand. Think about your documentaries, you're talking to just folks.
Yeah.
And individual experiences, which is
a lot of my work is with the United States of America, with We Need to Talk About Cosby, with a lot of the podcasting work I've done, is about the structures and the systems and about the history and about like these sort of like, I try to take these heady subjects and make them more user friendly. And so for me, it's like with this, it was like, I don't want to do it the same way. Like, I don't want this to feel like I really didn't want it to feel like an episode of United States of America, because there's a way in which that show is done, that there's a sort of a format. And I was like, the last thing I want is for this to feel like I went and made an episode of United States of America for HBO. So because the way that United States of America works, it's based on the trauma first, and then everything else is built around that. And for me, it was like, we got to trauma in this, but we're not going to start there. And so for me, it was really about like proving with these kids we talked to that as much as we make a big deal out of racism in this, as much as we make too big of a deal out of kids' ability to handle discussions about racism, it is overblown, not true, and unnecessary. Kids can handle these discussions.
Are they? Do they understand the full context, or are they just more coming from, or are they just speaking from a very personal spot, a place like or do they understand the political significance?
I mean, I would say my kids do.
Yeah, well, clearly.
Yeah,
And
no, I would say, and the thing is with the film, I wanted to meet every kid where they were. So like with Sumaya, if she wanted to talk about mangoes, we're going to talk about mangoes. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like it was really important for me to go to sort of say, where do you want to take this? When I asked Sumaya, this is a great example of this, who's a 7-year-old who's half Pakistani and half Black. That's from Conakry in Africa. And I said, what are your mixes? That was the question I asked every kid. We made sure every kid was comfortable talking about that. And she named her mom and dad, and then she started naming animals. and for me, it was like, there's probably an edit of this film where we cut out the part where she starts talking about animals because that's silly, that's ridiculous. But like, no, that's the film. That's the kid saying, this doesn't have me messed up in any way. I consider this is a part of my imagination play, just like anything else I'm doing is.
So you're editing for with other things in mind, not necessarily like, oh, somebody misspoke, you know.
No, I don't. I'm fine with people fumbling for words. I'm fine with people like, I don't hear the thing that would generally I would say, but especially with this, you know, people aren't used to talking on camera, so sometimes people will go down a dog leg and then realize they got into a dead end. And so like, and you're like, let me help you get out of that, you know.
That's your job as an interviewer.
Yeah. Like, let me, like, there's no reason for me to, or like with the kids, of course, we only talk to them for like 45 minutes at a time because we didn't want their attention we didn't want them to feel like it was they were testifying.
Sure.
And so, you know, but sometimes with some of those kids at 45 minutes, you could tell they were sort of done early, and you're like, all right, we're done here. So, you know, you're just sort of trying to like get to the heart of the good conversation. And to be quite honest, it could have been 3 times as long. Like there wasn't a lot of, and we had other kids we talked to who were great, but just for what we were doing. And also I really was committed to making it 60 minutes because I wanted to be something that kids ultimately can watch with their families. And so you don't want to make it like the 4-hour edit because the kids aren't going to watch it. So it was really important to make it 60 minutes because it's like we're in and we're out. And the important thing to me about this film is the conversations that build afterwards. Not the, you know, it's an invitation to continue to talk about these things.
Yeah. Well, this definitely would, right, to have some sort of educational or institutional distribution for this would be great, because if you get in front of classrooms, then you will have great, amazing conversations, especially with all this CRT bullshit that's going on. It's that I think a film like this, documentary like this, is probably really great.
If you know anybody at Apple, I want to see if we can just put it on people's iPhones the way they did with that U2 album.
Yeah, that went over well. Yeah.
Well, but just for people in Florida, they just sort of open their iPhones.
Sure.
There's a documentary about mixed race kids here.
Yeah. Well, you know, I just want to end with an anecdote, which, you know, and then, you know, definitely respond if you have something to say. But like I remember when Jake was a young guy, very young. He, you know, very fair skin, and he was even probably less ethnic looking. Now everybody thinks he's Puerto Rican. He gets that a lot. I was surprised, but he you know, just sort of self-identified as white more. You know, like if you were to ask him when he was, you know, he was very young then, but it was painful. You know, not just for his Black mom, but for me too. Like, because I you know, I want him to be proud of every bit of him. And so I think to dispel any kind of myth like that, it's not painful for everybody is important. You know.
How old is he? How old is Jake now?
He's turning 19 in a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Oh, well, congratulations! You made it.
No, it's a miracle. He turned out awesome. I have to say, he's really.
And I would say this, like, there's a part of me with my kids. Well, first of all, my mom did this for me. So I was Black. I'm Black. I was, and I still am. But my mom was very actively sort of like putting Black culture in my face, you know? Yeah. So it wasn't just that I was Black, because nobody's going to go, Kamau, are you, I'm not sure what race you are. Like, it is like, you know, but she was also actively like, we celebrated Kwanzaa way before it was cool. Like, it's cool now, but we did it then. She would take me to see we went to see Alice Walker speak at one point, and I was like, this is boring. She's like, I don't care.
You're gonna appreciate it. One day, yeah.
He would
See, now
always,
you can say it, and you're so grateful to your mother.
oh yeah, 1,000%. So I think there's things that my mom did because she's like, it's not enough to just be Black. You got to know it. And so with my kids, I think it's active parenting as a part of my parenting with my kids around their Blackness. Like in the film, I asked my Sammy, what's the song your dad plays for you in the morning sometimes? It's Young, Gifted, and Black by Nina Simone.
Yeah,
you
right.
know, and it's just this way to go, this is just who you are. You're in this, whatever the world tells you, this is who you are. And even Juno, who is much lighter than Sammy, who much like Jake, I don't know what she's going to end up looking like, but she's somebody who could potentially pass for white if she's given that up, if she's in that space, or white people might assume she's white. I don't want her to think that Black is just about what you're on the inside. Right. It's about who your parents are, and also the culture that you relate to the most. And so I feel like I'm very actively giving my kids vitamin B12 shots of Blackness.
You mentioned your mother being such a, what about Walter Alfred Bell? Did he?
No, my dad, I said my mom was a outside agitator. My dad was an inside agitator. So he was the guy in corporate America who always was like, keeping the door open for Black people to get through the door of corporate America. So I think the fact that I am who I am, but I work at these major corporations in the show business, but I'm doing all this stuff that nobody else is doing inside of those things. Is like, I'm the combination of my parents. So I think that is how it worked out.
Well, again, the name of the documentary, and it will be on Discovery Plus in May, is 1,000% Me Growing Up Mixed. Thank you. It's great to meet you. Thank you so much for making time for this.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a good conversation, and tell Jake I said hello.
I will. Thank you for that. Yeah, thanks.